Hey everybody, time for another flea market find segment. Mainly because I want to get this cabinet out of the way, and this is an acquisition I picked up about a week before Memorial Day weekend, and it's already July 14th, and I haven't even shown this yet or done anything really with it, and it's just kind of been in the way. I don't know exactly where the final location is going to be for this thing because I am seriously considering moving the mill to a completely different location, and those of you who have watched my flea market find segments over the last couple of years know that I had at an estate sale I had acquired 3 nice cabinets, and I've got them all lined up over there, and they're great for storage, and I'm thinking I might end up moving those over to a different spot and then putting this with them. But for the time being, I'm going to move this out of the way. It's quite a heavy cabinet. This is something that I walked into the flea market, and it was just pure luck because I actually hadn't planned on going to the flea market that day, and my wife and we were on our way somewhere, I forgot where, and I just had to make a quick stop there for something, I forgot what, and I had to drop something off to somebody, and while I was there and I was walking through, all of a sudden out there on the main showroom floor, sitting off to the side, not in any one particular spot, still on the rollaway cart they were moving it on, was this puppy. So I quickly found out that it belonged to a guy who's got the room in the back where I've bought several items from him in the past, and went over and talked to him about the cabinet, and ended up buying it. And had explained that, the following weekend was Memorial Day weekend, and we were going to be out of town, so that I wouldn't be able to come back and get it then, that it would have to be like the following week after that. So what ended up happening was it took me 2 or 3 weeks to get back there and get the cabinet here, and then I had to get it down into the basement. It is quite heavy. He thought that maybe this was a fire-rated cabinet, and that might explain the weight, but I don't believe it's fire rated because this is a single thickness steel in the top here, but it is double. It does appear to be, maybe not. No, it's single thickness steel throughout, but it's just really well constructed. It's in this OD green color. It seems to scream maybe military office. I also did a little bit of digging because I ended up taking out, some of the drawers were sticking a little bit in that, and I ended up taking out every single drawer. I do have this drawer, by the way, that's missing. This was loaded with hardware. It was clear that the last job this thing was doing was either in somebody's shop or garage, and it was just a catch-all for all kinds of tools and everything. And so there was a lot of hardware, miscellaneous bolts, nuts, screws, and other odd little items, and that went with the cabinet. And I'm not going to turn down free bolts and nuts and screws and washers because you go to buy them in the store, they're expensive enough. So anyways, I cleaned out all of those and put all that stuff into one drawer to be sorted at a later date, and that drawer is still sitting out in the one of my outer storage areas there because I just hadn't gotten around to bring it down. So I took all the drawers out. That also made this lighter and easier to get down the bulkhead. Got it down the bulkhead, and I just finished reinstalling all the drawers. Very little was wrong with this. One of these brass handles was loose and almost falling off, but when I took all the drawers out and I cleaned out all the hardware and junk that I found in the bottom that had fallen out and gone into the bottom of this over the years, I actually found the original brass square nuts that hold these handles on. So I was able to put the handle back on, tighten it properly, and everything's good there. The only other issue that I see, a couple of small issues. I have no idea why, but this one drawer latch right here, this is a spring-loaded latch that you have to pull over before you can open the drawer. They all work perfectly fine, even this one, but for some reason this one is actually twisted. So I can't for the life of me figure out how that might have happened. So I don't know, I'm tempted to try and twist that back, but I'm also mindful of the possibility of actually breaking it in the process. So, well, maybe we'll give it a little bit of a tweak. I also want to grab it with something that's not going to mar this up too badly, because this appears to all be brass, all this hardware. The little placards that hold the cards to identify what's in there, the handles, and these buttons right here all appear to be solid brass. So I think I'll just wrap this with this shop towel. All right, that was easy. So just a wide shot to give you the idea of the size of this thing. It's 57.5 inches high, just a tiny bit over, it's about 18 1/8 inch wide, but it's deep. It's 28 inches deep. So it draws that deep. Sometimes you have a problem where a lot of the stuff gets lost in the back of the drawer and kind of forgotten about back there. But another great thing about this particular cabinet is all of these drawers are full extension, or, well, I mean maybe 1 inch short, but the point is that you can get all the way to the back of this drawer, so that really makes this a lot more versatile than, say, you know, the kind that don't come out all the way and stuff kind of gets stuffed underneath there, like my desk drawer, for instance, in my office. Anyways, these also are full roller bearing construction. They're very strong. I mean, they are strong. So that thing was built to last. And when I took this, took all the drawers out and cleaned out all the hardware in the bottom there, stuck in the back, way in the back there, I actually found some little envelopes. They were almost like cellophane envelopes. And inside the envelopes were airmail stamps. And there were a bunch of different airmail stamps in there. And I believe that I checked online and ended up finding out that these stamps all date to like the 1940s or 1950s, somewhere in that vicinity. So that's the other reason why I believe that this was in a post office. And because of the olive drab color, I'm kind of thinking it might have been a military post office on a base somewhere. I'm noticing that from what I can read on the badly faded little placards that are in here, looks like this says Venezuela, can't read that one, Uruguay, this one says San something, but a lot of these lower drawers are marked with countries. This one's just marked supplies. I did change the order these drawers were in. Alright, so this is a locking cabinet. This one lock up here will lock all of the drawers. And I'm very fortunate that, and so wasn't actually the seller, that at no point did anybody come along and rotate and lock this the whole time that it was sitting there in the flea market before I bought it and after I bought it. What ended up happening though was when I got it home and the kids and I were looking through the drawers just seeing if there were any goodies in there or anything of real interest. And I think one of my sons was asking about the lock, and I had said that oh, well, you know, that locks all drawers, but we don't have the key. So the guy had warned me, you know, make sure you don't turn that. So what did I up and do? But I inadvertently turned it. Now, ended up turning it, locking it. Luckily for me, we had the drawer open when I did it. So what ended up happening is this lock actually rotates this rod right here. And this rod inserts into the back of a sleeve, and then has a it had a little I guess probably originally it was supposed to be a cotter pin, but there was just a little small finish nail in there that was bent over, which tells me this probably had been apart once before. So if I rotate this knob, this shaft, I can actually lock all of these drawers. And so I was able to, by undoing it, I was able to rotate the shaft to unlock it again. But this lock is still locked, so I really need to try and figure something out there as far as that goes. And then I think this shaft actually can come right out. But before I take it out, I just want to take a look in there with the light, make sure I can see exactly where it goes back in. Right now the shaft is just kind of hanging down. There we go. Yeah, it's a simple cam or crank mechanism. So as you rotate the shaft, that part right there is going to raise and lower a bar that goes all the way down the back here and engages all of these locks. So now if I leave this bar out, there's no way that that can lock again. Well, theoretically, unless that bar falls down through gravity. The idea of leaving that like it is bugging me, so I'm going to take this lock out and see what I can do. Alright. Interestingly enough, that holds this bracket in, but this knob will not fit through that hole. Must be a way to take this knob off. Now this outer knurled ring actually appears to turn. I wonder if it actually has screws. Alright, now that I've got the whole lock mechanism out and I get a good look at it, it's pretty simple to see how this ends up being rekeyed. The way this works is that right in this section right here, you can't see it, but there's a series of pins, and they all have a very unique length to them. And what happens is when the key is inserted, and you've got, you know, the key with well, let's see, this key I have handy here is not really a good example, but say I could insert this key in here. You can see that the teeth on the key have different heights, and if you have the right combination of teeth heights lined up with the right combination of pin lengths, what happens is all of the pins are pushed up out of position and would allow this tumbler to be turned. So right now what has happened is, because I rotated it and locked it, what happened is when I rotated it into position, springs actually pushed those little pins that are in here out and engage this tumbler, or this barrel I should say. So when you want to rekey a lock like this, what they would do is there's actually a little trap door right here that's kind of been like crimped into position, and what you would do is you would actually change the little tiny pins in here to align up with the key that you're going to use. So if you had the original key for this, and then you decided, well, you wanted to change this lock so that nobody who had that key could open it, then you would get this. A locksmith would do this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and pop this open, and I'm just going to remove all of those pins. And what that'll have the effect of doing is that'll essentially make it so that this won't be able to lock when it's turned. It won't be able to lock in position permanently and need a key to be opened. There we go. Alright, so you can see here are the little springs. The 4 springs are out now. Should be able to get the little tumblers to come out. I know I've got to grind some of this metal out of the way to get that little pin out, but even if I rotate this upside down and shake it so that I can see that the pin is coming out right there, this still doesn't want to turn. Well, I think I've got the mystery of the lock that won't come undone solved. I ended up drilling out this area right here, and there was no pin there. I can actually see the barrel right down in that hole. And then I noticed that if I hold this just right and sight down this slot, that I can see what looks like the end of a pin coming up from the bottom, engaging this, and that's what's keeping this from moving. I removed this sleeve. There was a little, very hard to see pin that held this on. Drove the pin out and took this little piece off. This little piece basically just acts to limit the rotation of the drum on these pins. In this case, this bracket actually overhangs, so it would stop that. But if there was a situation where this lock was mounted in a way that this wasn't here. So anyways, what I've come to realize, and should have been plain as the nose on my face, is that this whole area up here, the purpose of this whole area is because inside here there are more pins, at least one, if not more. I can only deduce that these are not changeable because there's no opening. This is all cast in one piece, and they must just act as secondary little locking pins to ensure that this is a stronger lock. By having pins coming into this from each side like this, it's much stronger than if there were only pins on this one side right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bracket off because it's kind of in my way. With the bracket off, I should be able to support this in my milling machine and mill off the top edge here and expose whatever pins are in there. All right, no fancy setup here. I'm not concerned with making a cut that's perfectly parallel to the or perpendicular to this face. So I've just got basically clamped in there, and I'm gonna shave a little off and see if we can expose those hidden pins. Well, I just got some of the pins to fall out, and some of these pins are actually in multiple pieces, but there's a couple still sticking in there, and that's really just because the holes have burrs at the end of them where the cutter passes over them. I already deburred a couple of them and got some more pins to fall out, but now I just put a drill bit in my little pin vise. Now this lock is free to move all at once, but I'm going to pull this barrel out and clean it up so it moves freely. Well, I just cleaned this up on the wire wheel and it didn't make much difference, so as I suspected, my burr is on the inside here. Probably, I wouldn't be surprised, let's see, goes in this way. Pretty much jams right away this way and goes in okay on this side. It seems like it goes okay, so the burr must be right up near the end here. Let's see. There we go. Seems okay now. It's July 18th, and we in New England are in the middle of I don't know if it's officially a heat wave, but it's been several days of temps in the 90s with very high humidity and pretty high overnight temperatures too, making it pretty miserable around here as far as comfort goes. So just noticing that I can hear quite a bit of wind out there rustling through the trees. We've had all of this high temps and humidities and haven't had not one evening thunder shower to go with it, which is kind of weird. I guess it's just the type of system or whatever that's hanging out. Must be an area of high pressure or low pressure or whatever that's just allowing this probably tropical humid air to come up from the south. And like I said, make things kind of unbearable. But I wonder if today's going to be the day where everything just cuts loose, thunderstorm-wise. Well, this is the other drawer that I hadn't installed yet because I had transferred all the hardware from all of the drawers and everything I found loose inside the bottom of the cabinet into this one drawer with the intention of sorting it when I get a chance, and I hadn't gotten around to it. But just a quick look, and you can see there's quite a bit of valuable hardware in here. You know, there's some brand new lag bolts. There's a nice long bolt with some fine thread on it. You know, that'd be an expensive bolt to buy if you needed to buy one. Self-locking nut on that one. Hose clamps, always handy to have. Several brand new, I think they're brand new. Yeah, several unused. A little bit of surface rust on them, but that's not going to stop them from being used. Some pipe nipples. Quite a few of these old style bulbs. These look like probably tail light, parking lamp, that kind of thing for old cars, with bayonet style. There's some brand new ones. Heavy duty turn signals. GE 1156 for parking, stop turn signal. Oh, this is peel and stick foam pad. Never know when that might come in handy on something. This looks like it might be old trailer hitch wiring. Well, this guy must have just saved everything. And then throughout the drawers, I found quite a few magnets stuck here and there. Judging by the shape and the size, I'd say that's probably salvaged out of a cone speaker. I remember when I was a kid, I used to beat the snot out of the cages on these on these speakers just to get the magnet out. You know, we didn't have any rare earth magnets back then, so this is the best you got. Oh, there's a strange little spanner wrench. I wonder what that fits. All right. Well, for the time being, I'm going to put this drawer back in the cabinet. I'll put one of the kids to work on sorting these bolts out. So that's a wrap on this cabinet here, and everything's working fine now. Now if I turn this, I can lock it if I want to with one twist. I can lock all the drawers, but you can't physically lock it so that you need a key to open it. So I don't have to worry about somebody accidentally turning this at some point and locking the whole thing on me and giving me a heap of trouble. All the drawers work perfectly well. Nice and smooth, ball bearing sliders. There's no reason why I wouldn't expect them to work that well. It's kind of wobbly right now because it's probably not in frame, but I've got it on a little wood dolly here to roll it around because I haven't decided yet where I'm going to put this thing. The only other thing is one of these drawers, this drawer right here. All of these other drawers, you have to push this little thumb latch over in order to release it to open it. This one here, the thumb latch doesn't work. And upon closer inspection, I could see when I look in the back here where the little bar is supposed to be, the bar is not even visible. So the only way to fix that would be to remove this draw backing inside here, which I don't really want to go through all of that effort. It's not critical to me that this could slide open, I guess, if the whole thing was tilted forward for some reason. But yeah, I'm happy with this as an addition for tool storage. I mean, in a perfect world, I'd love to have one of those, maybe like a Vidmar cabinet or something like that, or a Lista. Is it Lista? Lister? I can't remember the names, but there are a couple of companies out there that make really high-end cabinets with multiple drawers in them for tool storage and instrumental storage and like laboratories and that. And I mean, they're just construction is fantastic. But this is going to suit me just fine. And I think it's kind of neat. That's kind of an old vintage piece, a little like me. Oh, this is older than me.